hello everyone. My name is Adam Briggs, the Senior Vice President of Operations with Conference Direct, and thank you for joining us for the latest edition of CD Live. I'm joined by my co-host, Larry Hansen, Conference Direct's Chief Marketing Officer, and our special guest, Michael Massari, the Chief Sales Officer with Caesars Entertainment. So we're really excited about today's topic and really talking about how the hotel community is coming back to meetings business. So Michael, as the co-chair of Meetings Mean Business, what are you doing and planning to support our industry's recovery?
Well, Adam, Larry, thanks for having me on today. I really appreciate it and getting a chance to talk about these important topics as we kind of get things back to normal. So, look, MMB is really focused on the first thing that we have to be focused on, was getting permission to operate again. I mean, if you look at what's happening across the country, in many states across the country, we're limited to no gatherings or gatherings of 10 or 25 or 50 or 150. And so what we're really looking for is permission to operate. We're trying to convince government officials that meetings and events can happen safely, that we have excellent protocols in place, and that there's a difference between being 10 people in a 100-square-foot restaurant and 10 people in a 100,000-square-foot ballroom. And so hopefully we can earn that permission to operate, because without that, all of our other plans really they're not as important.
So that obviously, one of the challenges planners have faced is that it's varied so much from state to state and community to community. Is there a way to get it past that challenge? Something more on the federal level or more standardization?
I don't think in this iteration there is. I think we're going to have to live with a state-by-state model. One of our secondary goals at Meetings Mean Business is to, over the next couple of years after this is behind us, to get to a place where we can consider business events, meetings and events, essential industry, because it is what makes all organizations move forward and grow. And it does allow, everything important in our lives to happen. I mean, one of my favorite sayings is, nothing good ever occurred until first someone had a meeting. And so one of our secondary goals is to make meetings and events essential industry. That could happen on the federal level, but for now, we're going to have to deal with this state by state.
Great. So Michael, pull out your crystal ball right now and tell us kind of what you're thinking for Caesars forecast for the meeting industry in 21.
Well, yeah, I want to say, Larry and Adam, that before I say anything that has to do with the crystal ball, that I've been incorrect for about 9 consecutive months. So I just want
we're going to get you. We're going to improve your average share, Michael.
I hope so. So look, I'll start with more the broader industry, because I think it applies to Caesars. And so the meetings and events, our DNA, our desire to gather has never been stronger. 9 months of not being able to gather has done one thing, and that's made it certain that we want to get back together. We want to be face to face, and more important than that, I think we understand the benefit of it. I mean, we understand the difference between us being face to face and the way we communicate and the information that's shared and the retention, and all of the wonderful things that happen face to face versus Zoom or versus telephone. And so people's DNA, and their desire to gather stronger than ever. So whatever happens in the future, I don't go to bed worrying about the face-to-face meetings business in the long run at all. I don't know how this is going to play out over the next 12 months or 15 months, as certainly as I do. People will gather together face to face in the future, and they will do it because it is the best way to communicate, it is the best way to grow, it's the best way to pass along information, et cetera, et cetera. Now, more specifically, certainly our calendar is relatively sparse between now and June, and then our calendar is quite substantial from June on. So you could make an argument that beginning in June, should the vaccine and should the governments allow us to, we can have a pretty robust business. I'm a little concerned that the companies that have commitments on the books in June, July, August, September, might not consume at the levels that they currently think. But listen, that's a much better problem to deal with than what we're dealing with today, which is essentially no revenue.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Sorry.
So, obviously Vegas is important to us. It's always one of the top destinations booked for Conference Direct. And, we've seen some variations with state. Obviously, Orlando, Texas are being a little bit more liberal on bookings and meetings. So what's happening in Vegas, and how is the community coming there to help get their voice heard, or anything you see coming up in the future for Vegas specifically?
Yeah, so right now in Las Vegas, we're constrained to groups of 50 people or less, and that's it. That's a statewide pause that now is going to go on until mid-February. We would expect that there'd be some type of announcement. I mean, our governor has on several occasions said that his goal is to get us to 50% as soon as humanly possible. I think that, we talked about the differences between these states, and you mentioned specifically Texas and Florida, and I think Indianapolis, you could be thrown into that category, and several others. These differences will the gaps will start to close over some period of time. I mean, there's no question now that between rapid testing and vaccines, that we'll be able to gather together safely, at some point here in the near future, because you can see a path now towards saying that every meeting attendee for a group of 5,000 either has a recent rapid test negative or has a proof of vaccine. It's coming in our future. That closes all the gaps that exist, and that puts Nevada and our fine state and New Jersey and the other places we operate on an even playing field with places that are more liberal now, like Texas, Florida, and Indiana. Does that answer your question, Larry?
Yeah, it does. I mean, obviously, it's a confusing thing right now for our customers, but I have to admit that MMB link about all the destinations and what's going on is one of the best things. We have it up on our website, and that it makes it very easy to see what's going on, and we share that with our customers too. So
it's a little
like
great
access.
Good. It's a little like, if you talk to people like me that work in these big facilities, and especially have multiple properties, and you ask them like, hey, what show is there on Tuesday night, or what restaurants are open for dinner on Wednesday? Like it's like the most impossible question to ask, because these things change so rapidly, and you never know. And this is the same thing that's happening now with all of this, these COVID restrictions. They change so fast, and there's so many different states, right? So you've just got a difficult problem to try to solve. And so it's resources like that, I think, really make things helpful.
Yeah, it's a great resource.
Good.
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of tying back into, you mentioned that, you recognize that groups may not pick up the way you had originally forecasted them to, but at least it's some revenue. I think one of the big concerns with a lot of our planner customers is that they're approaching a desire to finally be able to meet in person again. But let's face it, those 10 years of history they're going to bring to you kind of they have to throw out the window, right? So what is Caesar's philosophy on the reopening of in-person meetings as it relates to the contracts that are already signed? Flexibility in pickup and terms, and for new contracts that still, again, are not going to be able to come to you with concrete history. How are you approaching those conversations and negotiations?
Yes, that's a great question, Adam. So look, we've always put flexibility in the forefront of things that we want to be part of our DNA and part of who we are, and really understanding what our customers' needs are and making sure that we can meet them. Customers that have contracts here, now, next month, the month after, June, July, August, like the best advice I can give to those customers is to try to have a meeting, is to call your facilities and say, like, I want to have a meeting. Okay. If you force me into, my 10% attrition and my food and beverage minimum from a year and a half ago, and I thought I was going to be at 1,000 people, like, I can't have a meeting. But if you give me some flexibility, I want to try to gather some people together. It's hard for hotels to say no to that. I mean, we want to please our customers. We're in the gathering business. That starts the conversation off on a really nice foot. And our philosophy on this is, if we have customers that want to try to have meetings, we ought to try to have a meeting with them, right? And we're not in the attrition business. We're not in the billing business. Like, we want to provide people great experiences and then be compensated for that. And so, I think there's a lot of flexibility, in the short and the intermediate term. That's a more difficult conversation to have for a meeting that's in 2023, but that's a pretty easy conversation to have for a meeting that's in June. So I think that's the first part. And then the second part on new business is, new business, we should just all understand the environment that we're in and making sure that we're contracting in a way that reflects the environment that we're in. And so I think customers have a good idea as to what they're planning and what they're trying to accomplish, with a little bit more flexibility on the pertinent clauses around attrition and food and beverage minimums, cancellations, et cetera. You should be able to meet a new customer's needs, I think, pretty easily. It's the existing customers that gets a little trickier. But I think if you start with, I want to have a meeting, how do I do that? I think that's the best place to start.
Yeah, which kind of makes me transition, and I'm going to give you a positive plug here and a question. So we're seeing the migration for a lot of requests for hybrid meetings. You guys hosted our annual partner meeting. It was amazing. You were a great partner, great new space in Caesars Forum. But one, what are you guys seeing on hybrid requests? And then, how are you kind of managing those different things you're doing differently to accommodate those?
So look, I think this is thanks for asking that, Larry. I think this is a really important topic for the industry, because I talk to folks that are scared of hybrid or virtual. And I don't think we ought to be. I would point to two things that would cause us to embrace rather than try to reject hybrid and virtual. So the first is that hybrid, and virtual, they've come into play here over the last 10 years in a really meaningful way. All these technologies have been available and they've been utilized by customers. And during that 10-year time when Zoom and telepresence and hybrid and virtual and all this technology, we had the best 10 years, in the history of our industry, right? And so that points you to the second thing, which says, this is not this is never going to replace face-to-face. What we're doing here is so much better than the telephone, which is what we've been using 10 years ago, but it's never going to replace face-to-face. But what it does allows us to bring more people into the fold. It allows us to do something better. It allows us to grow meetings and events. It allows us to get more people interested in the meeting and more people educated about the topics. This is an enhancement to face-to-face. And so I think we ought to embrace it. Obviously, whatever percentage of customers were doing hybrid 2 years ago, the percentage will be much higher next year. And we've got a great audiovisual partner in Encore Technologies, and they're ready and willing to put together a platform and a program for customers to utilize to add virtual to grow the tent for their meeting and event.
And are you seeing a lot of requests come in, Michael, for hybrid?
Yeah, I mean, again, and I'm just guessing here, but if it was a quarter of customers or 20% of customers that had a meaningful hybrid component to their meeting 2 years ago, we don't have many customers now that aren't asking. So almost everybody's asking, right? Now, that doesn't mean that everybody's going to utilize some hybrid or virtual component, but almost everybody's asking at this point.
Yeah.
So that's actually a great segue. Obviously, the number of meetings requesting hybrid, you said, just has gone up. Are you having to invest in new infrastructure, capital expense to handle that demand? Or is it something that you've been planning for or just done organically? I know you have a large portfolio, so it might change from property to property, but what does that look like from an investment perspective?
Yeah, look, I mean, so going back to the fact that this has happened over an extended period of time, and this didn't just jump on us right now. I mean, our buildings are generally equipped to handle all of this, right? So we've already got Wi-Fi, we've already got big pipes into the buildings in terms of being able to handle the bandwidth and the data, and that's the big part of it, right? Everything else is temporary or purchasable, and so our buildings can generally handle this. And then again, our audiovisual partner, Encore Technology, is really the provider of most of these services, and so they have a massive capital budget to buy equipment and gear and to buy the talent that it takes to execute against these things. And I can assure you that there's nothing that our audiovisual partner Encore Technologies can't do. They're production capable and they can do just about anything. And look, I don't think that Caesars is different in that. I'm glad that we can say that, but I also think that Hilton and Hyatt and Marriott and MGM and LVS can all say that too. And so I think that's a real positive thing for our customers and for our industry.
Yeah. So, and we saw that kind of period of when virtual came out, there was this kind of learning curve. And, we know that's going to be the same thing with hybrid. And the one of the biggest concerns is obviously cost. And one way of managing that is allowing customers to bring in their own production companies to help control that. What's your philosophy at Caesars on that?
Yes. So a couple of things I would say is one, specific to your question about other production companies, we welcome the opportunity for other production companies to bid on our customers, and Encore welcomes that. We don't believe in exclusives around these types of things. I mean, we do have some exclusives around rigging and electrical and getting into the ceiling, but that's quite understandable, I think. Encore wants to have to bid, and they like that. And 90% of our customers choose Encore, so they bid and they win. So that's the first part. The second part is that, I think that there's a spectrum of things that people can try to do, right? Like you can do hybrid where it's just as simple as setting up a camera and having somebody live stream into the room, and you can do hybrid from the standpoint that all the attendees are separated into breakouts. They're constantly getting interactive questions that are being submitted and posted up on the board and incorporated into the agenda live. So there's a spectrum of things you can choose, and I think the costs are going to reflect that, right? I mean, if you want all the possible accoutrements that hybrid has, then it's not going to be inexpensive. But if you want to just make sure that people can participate and be engaged, then you can do something that's a little bit more cost effective. So
yeah, and you guys are a great partner. We have a really good I'm giving you another plug. We have a really good white paper on our website on the meetings recovery about the hybrid and a lot of the things you guys did that I have to say for one of the first hybrid events probably that were occurring, you guys did an amazing job. So.
Well, I'll tell you a short story that your associates and the other people listening to this might appreciate. So, I was not aware of this up until this forum opening, but you apply for a trademark for a name, and so we applied for a trademark for Caesars Forum, and we went through the legal process and we got a tentative approval. The reason it was a tentative approval is because it does not become official until somebody actually purchases something from you, right? Until there's commerce that's associated with that name. And so, when we went to build it, we went through the legal process, got the tentative approval. We held on to that tentative approval. There's a timeline on it. I don't know what it is, but we didn't get very close to it. But we were supposed to have, we were supposed to kick off with 5,000 people for Aruba and then 6,000 people for Adobe and then the NFL draft and blah, 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 blah. Well, obviously we didn't. And your meeting got pushed back and pushed back and pushed back. Well, it finally occurred, thankfully, and we really appreciate that. And it was the first paying customer at Caesars Forum.
So we could put Caesars Forum by CD in the title.
You literally put the name on
Powered by CD. There you go. Powered by CD. You literally
put the name on the map. So thank you for being there. It was
welcome. Well, thank you.
To have you there.
Yeah.
No, Michael, great. So I actually want to ask you a question. So, hybrid meetings, you talked about the benefits of hybrid, and I do agree it's going to expand. Planners love it because it can give, people an exposure to the event that maybe haven't historically attended, and they might attend next time.
They will want to, for sure.
Yeah. So by, your name in general, Caesars Entertainment, you're in the entertainment business. Do you have plans for helping planners deliver that Caesars experience to those virtual attendees so that will give them that exposure and that taste so that next time they're going to be, I need to be in the building? What are your plans for kind of reaching out beyond the internet to people to try to attract that future audience?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the ultimate answer to that question is going to come from all of the different ways that our customers do add virtual and hybrid to their meeting. I'm a little reticent to start to guess as to what that looks like and how it ends up happening, because I think Aruba and Adobe and Microsoft are all gonna add to that and build on that and grow from that and learn from each other. But yeah, look, I think you're absolutely right in the concept that somebody who comes in and does the virtual component will realize that that's fine. but it's nothing like being there live and having the face-to-face interactions and all the things that come from it. And so they'll have a high desire to transfer from virtual to in person. And I think a great example of this in the casino business is we've got all these frequency properties around the country, that are in your neighborhoods and that are in your localities. And people, when they first started to open, when these types of properties first started open, thought that this was going to damage Las Vegas, but what it did is it exposed lots more people to this type of entertainment, to this type of experience, and they realized that it was different and better in Las Vegas, and so they wanted to get there. So the destination properties, the regional properties, feed the destination properties, and the same concept's going to happen with hybrid. The hybrid virtual environment is going to feed the face-to-face. It's going to be the funnel, and that's why, going back to we shouldn't try to reject this. We should embrace it. It's going to increase the attendance over time, not decrease it.
Yeah, we need to work with you on creating that FOMO, because we want that too. So you guys are, I believe it's almost coming up on a year on your merger. So talk to us, one, about how that integration is going, and then two, kind of what's the plans for the future?
Yeah, look, the merger with ERI has been fantastic. The people who run now our company and previously ERI are good people that want to do well by the community, by the shareholders, by the customers. They've been great to interact with. They're very interested in the meetings business. They're glad we're expanding at the forum and want to continue to grow this business. So it's been wonderful. This isn't our first rodeo, right? This is our second or third ownership change over the last 10 years. And what I found, and look, we all go through this at different points in our career. And so some of your listeners may be going through this now, or may go through this in the next year or so. As long as your expectations of your own performance are greater than that of your supervisor's expectations of your performance, then everything's going to be just fine. And we've got very high expectations in the meetings business at Caesars Entertainment, and we run very fast and we try very hard. And so generally people look at that and say, man, that you're doing some good stuff and we appreciate it. And that's the situation that we're in now. So I don't expect any wholesale changes in terms of what we're doing. And I expect the company to continue to want to grow and invest in the meetings and events business. It's an important business for our company, and I think will continue to be so. And
any big expansion plans you want to talk to us about?
We need to digest this forum before we start thinking about going forward. I mean, if you'd asked me this question without COVID, we'd be approaching a year of having the forum open and running. I might have a future answer, but I just want to get back open. I want to get my employees back to work. I want to start executing great meetings for customers. I want to walk by customers in the hallway that say, man, I learned so much today. We're having a great time. This is a fantastic experience. I can't wait to go back home and start to put all this learning into my day-to-day life. We just want to get back operating again, and then we'll start thinking more about the future.
Great. Well, first of all, thank you, Michael. And from a Conference Direct perspective, we can't find a better partner than you. Your sales team is awesome. You've always been a great supporter of Conference Direct. And for those of you who've not seen the Caesars Forum, it is pretty amazing. And definitely you need to, when you're in Vegas, take a look at that. But thank you, Michael, for taking the time today to speak to us. And we appreciate your support.
Well, it's really my pleasure, and I feel the exact same way about the partnership. I mean, our relationship with you all is so important to us, and it's been so fruitful, both personally and professionally. And really glad to be here today, and hope that some of the listeners, gain something from this. And if anybody has any questions or want to talk about any of these topics more, you can always reach me at mmassari@caesars.com or on my cell at 702-203-6412. Call me anytime.
Great. Well, thanks, Michael. And as a reminder to everyone, this CD Live is always on our website and also on our YouTube channel at Conference Direct. So please make sure you look at any past episodes also. So thank you, Michael, and thank you, Adam, today. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you both very much.